I'd like to begin this morning by expressing our thanks to Secretary Geithner, to Director Orzag, and to Dr. Romer for being with us today. Even as Republicans and Democrats remain divided on the many issues of the day, I believe we are all in agreement that the fiscal path we're currently on is unsustainable. With an annual deficit of $1.6 trillion, unemployment hovering near 10% across the country, in my district pushing in many places beyond 15%, and an economy showing only tepid signs of recovery, it's clear that we must change course now or face catastrophic consequences in the very near future. My colleagues, I think the simple truth is that Uncle Sam, among other things, needs a diet. Our greatest challenge and our greatest hope to achieving a lasting recovery lies in curbing Uncle Sam's appetite for spending. It's time to cut up the government credit card and live within our means or face disaster. Since 2007, the Appropriations Committee has overseen the unprecedented 28% increase in annual non-defense discretionary spending. Last year alone, non-defense and veterans discretionary spending increased by almost 13%, and that's excluding the $862 billion stimulus package. This stunning acceleration of spending has led to skyrocketing deficits, but annual discretionary funding is only part, as you know, of that equation. Over the long term, at current projections, spending on the three major mandatory entitlement programs will one day consume our entire budget. Changing course will require a level of political courage not often found here in Washington. Absent making tough choices, starting today, we will continue inflicting lasting damage on our economy, affecting not only our grandchildren, but their grandchildren as well. Earlier this year, the President announced with great fanfare that he would submit a fiscal year 2011 budget that freezes most non-defense and non-homeland discretionary spending. However, that doesn't appear to be the budget that he has submitted. If I'm wrong, I hope you'd clarify that. I say that because the President's budget currently increases spending across 8 of the 12 appropriations subcommittees, where is the suggested freeze? Mr. President, we're anxious to see your freeze. It's disingenuous to suggest that the budget represents anything close to a freeze, particularly when it's being applied to the budget after last year's 13% increase in discretionary spending, and after last year's stimulus package, which was approved under the faulty premise of stimulating the economy and creating jobs. Unemployment rates at 15% in my district would suggest it clearly has missed the target. In addition, the President's plan relies on several accounting gimmicks, like transferring Pell Grants to mandatory spending to skew the true totals. Ultimately, this proposal will have very little, if any, positive effect on our overall budget picture. There is not a member in this room today who believes this budget will result in significant deficit reduction. In my view, the President's budget falls woefully short in reining in the government spending. It simply doesn't go far enough to give the scale of the fiscal challenges we face. The administration continues to ignore the explosive growth of entitlement programs and places its hope in a fiscal commission to address the tough issues of this budget. Sadly, this commission is not accountable to Congress or the American public, and it won't even begin to make recommendations until after the midterm elections. About the time we start running our government by way of commission is about the time we truly know we're on the pathway to bankruptcy. The administration's own numbers paint an unflattering picture of the President's budget. Over the course of the next 10 years, when the administration assumes the economy to have recovered from the recession and the war in Iraq to have ended, our debt, deficits, and spending will remain out of control and will continue to worsen. Assume for a moment that we finally implemented this President's budget. The deficit would never drop below $700 billion and would start climbing above $1 trillion again by fiscal year 2020. Publicly held debt would nearly triple by the year 2020. The interest on this debt would quadruple over the same period and would become one of the largest single expenditures of the federal budget. Ironically, the issue is not lack of revenue under the President's budget. This is because our President is proposing nearly $2 trillion in additional receipts over the next decade from various tax increases, fee increases, and other revenue raisers. So not only will Uncle Sam be spending more, but the President's budget will be aggressively taking money out of the pockets of taxpayers and out of the private economy. At this moment, for every available job in the United States, there are 6 people now seeking work. The President has said that creating new jobs and reducing unemployment is, and I quote, the single most important thing we can do to rebuild the middle class. The key to job growth lies not in more spending, more stimulus, or more jobs bills, but in less spending, less taxation, and removing regulatory barriers that will hinder economic growth. Putting it simply, the administration is not only spending too much, in my view, it's scaring the hell out of small businesses, the economic engine of our national economy. It has done this through promoting cap and trade legislation, new rules on greenhouse gases, and new taxes and fees from its health care reform bill, all of which will result in higher prices that will be passed on to consumers. What small business is going to invest, which or how many small businesses are going to invest or rehire anyone in this uncertain environment. We can agree to disagree on the cause of our economic troubles, but the fact remains that we cannot spend our way to economic health until this Congress and this administration curbs its appetite for spending. Our economy will continue to suffer. I will close as I began with this comment. The simple truth is that Uncle Sam does need to go on a diet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.